And now we'll move on to Mr. Good of Virginia.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. AmeriCorps is a textbook example of an unnecessary government program that's not practically or constitutionally justified. It's not working. It's not a valid use of taxpayer resources. It's not an appropriate function of the federal government, and clearly it should be eliminated. After 30 years of failure, how much longer should we have pour our hardworking taxpayer dollars into a failing enterprise? If this was a private, performance-based organization, it would have been closed its doors long ago. I have a question for Miss Jeffrey. In your testimony, you referenced AmeriCorps' failure to accurately track the status of grant funds. Can you explain why those funds, or why AmeriCorps cannot track those funds?
So in some cases, AmeriCorps can't say whether a share of the grant funds have been spent or unspent, whether the grant funds have been drawn down by the grantee and are being held by the grantee, or whether they have been used to meet immediate needs, immediate cash needs, as they're supposed to be. Federal cash management regulations require that funds be drawn down no more than 3 days before incurring the expenses they're supposed to reimburse. Otherwise, you've got a reservoir of money sitting at a grantee that's vulnerable to misuse. So we don't want that to happen. AmeriCorps' records aren't very clear or accurate about where the money is sitting and whether it has been spent or unspent. In addition, at the conclusion of a grant, there should be a grant closeout in which we look at how much money has been...
Let me interject just for a moment. You said AmeriCorps, it's not clear where the money is sitting and whether or not it's been spent or unspent.
At particular points in time along the grant.
Okay, go ahead and proceed.
And then at the end of the grant, there's sort of a true-up. You look at how much money was granted, any changes made to that, how much the grantee has spent, and then AmeriCorps should be recovering the unspent remainder. And in some cases, they don't seem to be doing that. They think they're doing it, but what they say they're recovering, their records can't actually justify. At the same time, or in a similar fashion, in any given year, you may get partway through the year and see that this grantee will not use 100% of the money that's been set aside for it. If you don't know the status of those funds that year, you can't then redirect some of that money to another grantee who could make good use of it.
You know, private enterprises obviously wish they had the ability that even if you're failing, that you could just go to the federal government for unlimited funds to continue to operate. Can you expound on the recommendations from the recent audits to address the failures that you've outlined?
So really what the auditors are saying is you've got to look at each component of financial management, identify where you've got problems, and start redesigning. They're really talking about a redesign based on where we are and where we need to get to. This is not plugging little gaps or looking at low-hanging fruit. This is let's reconceive the way we operate financial management. And in addition, look at some of the things that AmeriCorps has done recently and look at the current plans and readjust those to fit into a coherent whole restructuring.
You know, we had a hearing a year ago, Mr. Smith, as you know, on this with AmeriCorps in this very committee. And I know it's only been a year, but we continue to have some of the same failures have not been corrected from a year ago. The failures include a budget of over $1 billion, but an inability to accurately track the status of the grant funds. 76 outstanding recommendations from Inspector General audits have yet to be acted upon. 10.6 million, or fully 1/3 of the budget, spent on members and staff with inadequate criminal background checks. How could you say that AmeriCorps should continue to exist in its current form, given its misuse of taxpayer dollars and its failure to even weed out sex offenders effectively? Do you agree, or surely you must agree that the problems far outweigh the benefits that AmeriCorps brings?
Congressman, thank you for the question, and I understand your frustration. I share a lot of the frustrations with some of the challenges that I encountered when I came into this agency. There have been challenges with outdated systems, with archaic file keeping, and in some cases having to go and find paper files from file cabinets. And so on my watch, I have brought an attitude of urgency. I have brought an attitude of an aggressive approach towards this problem. We have people and systems that are in place, and I believe I'm out of time.
Well, I'll just add, under the Office of the OMB's criteria, programs are not compliant if more than 10% of dispersed funds are found to be improper payments. The OIG has found consistently that flaws within the AmeriCorps process which contribute to inaccurate estimates of improper payments for AmeriCorps, all their programs failing to meet the 10% threshold in fiscal year 2021. So I yield back, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.